wants to be king!
Welcome back to the War Room. Today I want to address the most recent catastrophe that has taken place in Texas, down in Uvalde. Like I said recently when I spoke on Tony Bruno's channel, I've got a small connection to that town in that when I was in high school, they were one of our most fierce rivals in football. And so I've been down there a few times and actually had a really good friend in college that I competed against in high school from there. And so hearing about this latest tragedy that's taken place down there, it sucked a little bit extra because I'm not sure if my friend was some kind of way affected by that, whether his grandchildren or whatnot were at that school. You know, I watched a couple of videos about this, a couple of different takes. But one of them that was most, I guess, the most effective was watching Officer Brandon Tatum in his charts and condescending view because he was a police officer trying to defend the actions of those men in uniform. I generally agree with what Officer Tatum says in his videos, and I understand that we're not going to always agree with what somebody else says, how they see things. But I've kind of found it distasteful that, you know, while he's always talking about being a man and standing up and accountability and ownership and all this shit, that he can sit back and look at what happened with those officers taking the order to stand down and not engaging in Rule 303. I find that distasteful and just not really that cool at all. For most people, Rule 303 is foreign. And what that basically means is when you're engaged in a mission, you have orders, and generally you have rules. There's laws, rules of engagement, things that you can do and things that you're not supposed to do. And what Rule 303 means is sometimes you have to break the rules. Sometimes you have to step outside of the lines of what the rules are, what you're supposed to do because of what's right. Sometimes it's breaking the law, sometimes it's merely disobeying a direct order because you choose to do what's right. Once this coward entered the building and started shooting children, no matter who he was shooting, once he discharged that weapon inside the school, no matter what was said from the ranking officer, Rule 303 should have been engaged by those men. I don't say that those men were cowards because I don't know them. But standing down, following orders to not engage, to not dispatch of that threat, that was cowardice. And you find out who you are, you find out what you're made of when you're put in situations like this. When you're put in really stressful situations, you find out whether you're a warrior or a wussy. And again, not to call these men out of their name, I do not know them, but they got put in a situation and they didn't respond properly. They followed orders, but they didn't do the right thing. But that's not what I don't want to harp on that part of it, because everybody's going to have their own opinion about what should have happened, how it went down. The main focus here is innocent children lost their lives. And the way that I see this, it's just an illustration of the cowardice that has permeated the male population of our country. And it's not surprising because we've spent decades with the, 22nd, 23rd, whatever wave of feminism telling boys that they were worthless, telling men that their natural inclination to preserve, protect, preside, to provide was no longer needed, and made a mockery of it. It's no wonder that we've got so many boys that are confused and feel invisible, and find the only way for themselves to feel alive is to become hated, to become notorious, to become famous by doing some ultimate coward shit like this kid did. These perpetrators of these crimes are getting younger and younger. And again, it's not surprising, because we've had a culture that has celebrated promiscuity, celebrated single motherhood, and in doing so, we have got ill-equipped people trying to raise boys to men. And not that it can't be done, but it's extremely difficult for a woman to raise a boy properly into a proper man. And there's evidence of that all across the board, all across every single race. It's pretty evident. We've got a culture of cowardice, and now what we're seeing is the result of that. The result of emasculating young boys, beating them down, telling them that they're no longer relevant, no longer needed, no longer wanted. We're creating a culture where this is going to continue to happen. What we need isn't more laws, because the people who have the intent to do bad are always going to find a way to do it. It's not the tool that these people are using that's the problem. It's the person that's the weapon. A person who has ill intent is going to find something to commit that intent. They're gonna find something to use. That's the way that it always goes. Blaming the tool is foolish. Blaming the tool that was used in that, and trying to outlaw, ban, restrict it, makes as much sense as taking cars away because of people who drive drunk and cause accidents there. What we've got is a nation of weak men and confused boys. This Uvalde shooter, you could just look at this kid. You don't even need to hear the story. You could look at this kid and tell that he's probably caught hell, because there was no man in his life, because there was no male guidance in his life. He became some weird fruitcake that people inevitably picked on. And eventually it erupts. And when it erupts, innocent people get killed, because cowards never go where people are that are going to fight back. And they usually tell you that, like the last guy did. What we need to do in this culture, once again, is the men need to step up. The men need to step up and take back control of our communities, of our culture. The matriarchy has destroyed everything in our country, in our culture, that once made us strong. All the Easton-ism movements have eroded the fabrication of our country. And now we are crumbling. The seams are come apart. And now we're falling apart. So much that young, conflicted males go and harm children because of the way that they feel. It's time for the men in America to stand up and be men again. Generations past didn't have this problem because the men were in control. When the patriarchy was in play in America, we were strong. We were a great nation. But we have submitted control. We've given control over everyone who's whined and complained and begged and demanded for more. And like a petulant child, they're never satisfied. It's time for the men to stand up and say, no more. No more.